Hi, welcome to this episode of the Top Matters Health Corner. Today, we are looking at a very common condition in the gastrointestinal system. That's diarrhea. So, we want to have a look at what diarrhea is, the various classes of diarrhea that we have, then what causes diarrhea, and then how the diarrhea itself is caused. Um, Basically, when we talk about diarrhea, we are talking about the passage of frequent loose and watery stools from the body. So, what we are trying to say is that stool that comes from the body is not supposed to be watery. It is also not supposed to be very hard. It is supposed to be in between soft and semi formed or semi solid. And any deviation from this indicates that there is an abnormality, and we have to find out what is causing that. And I might say that diarrhea is the commonest presentation of disease conditions of the gastrointestinal system. So the likes of typhoid fever, infective gastroenteritis, enteritis, and others, they all have the underlying presentations to be diarrhea. But of clinical significance to us is that before we can say that you have diarrhea, then it means that within a day or within 24 hours, you've passed loose stool for 3 or more times. So we cannot just say that you have diarrhea if you pass only one loose stool. No. It's supposed to be 3 or more number of times. Then we can have the cause to worry. And it must be taken seriously because diarrhea has a very dire complication called dehydration, which is very dangerous and can kill within the shortest possible time. But anytime one has diarrhea, then it means that there is an underlying condition that has to be investigated. Maybe it could be due to some ear infection, it could also be due to some urinary tract infection, it could also be due to pneumonia, and then also it could be due to malaria. So when you have diarrhea, it could mean that any of these conditions could be in your system, and we might find out which of them it is. But what are the various classes that diarrhea comes in? There could be what we call acute diarrhea, which you pass loose to in less than 2 weeks. So you started passing loose to, but it is not up to 2 weeks. Then we say that you have acute diarrhea. This possibly could be due to some ongoing infection, and it could also be due to maybe some drugs that you have taken. That is to say that it is a drug-induced diarrhea. Then we could also have a chronic form of diarrhea, where in this case it means that you've passed the stool more than 2 weeks. So between 2 weeks to close to like about 1 month, you've been passing watery stools for like that period. And this mostly could be due to a lot of conditions. It could be due to some hyperthyroidism issue. It could even be due to some drugs, maybe like a laxative that you have taken. It could also be due to some malnutrition or issues, or even it could be due to some penicillin-based drugs that you have taken, and also it could be due to some chronic underlying infections like tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, etc., etc. However, when the loose stool has been passed more than 1 month, then you have graduated into what we call the persistent diarrhea. So these are the major classes of diarrhea that we could talk about. But what causes diarrhea? There are a number of factors that cause diarrhea. We'll try to break them into some steps so that it will be easy for us to all understand. Number one, it could be due to the entry of disease-causing organisms or pathogens. It could be viruses, it could be bacteria, it could be parasites, it could also be fungi. And the entrance of these disease-causing organisms into you will produce toxins into your system, which will cause a lot of diarrhea issues for you. Number two, it could also be due to some drugs, the intake of certain drugs. And we are talking about the laxatives, as I mentioned earlier on, then also NSAIDs, and then some penicillin-based drugs. Some people react to them and they could be side effects and you could have diarrhea. Number three, it could be due to food intolerance. certain people do not just like certain food substances in their body. So the body will resist them when they enter into the system, like taking of dairy products or milk or lactose intolerance. Then also, people who take caffeine or caffeinated or tea could even have diarrhea out of what of it. So food can also cause what diarrhea. Then we could also talk about, as I said earlier, some drugs. I mentioned that already. Then we could also have alcohol, the heavy drinkers, heavy drinking of alcohol and alcoholic beverages could cause diarrhea. The point is that alcohol prones you to malnutrition, which is one of the key conditions that could present with what? With diarrhea. And alcohol itself lowers absorption activities in the small intestine and it can prone you to diarrhea. Last but not the least, food poisoning or as a result of what? Bad diet. And this could be another form of cause of diarrhea. But how is the whole thing of diarrhea brought about? I think it's an interesting thing we all need to know. So any of these foreign substances, when they enter into your body, like I mentioned earlier on the disease-causing organisms, the food intolerance, the drugs and the other things, they produce a lot of toxins into the lumen of the small intestine where absorption is supposed to take place. And when these toxins enter into the lumen, they attract a lot of water from the surrounding cells into the lumen, and it increases the water content of the lumen and brings down the absorption activities of the lumen. And this means that food that is going to be moving from the lumen of the small intestines into the large intestines is virtually actually what? Water. And when that goes into the large intestines, that is where stool is going to actually be formed. It also moves into the rectum and comes out as stool. And of course, since it is water that moves all the way from the small intestine into the large intestine into the rectum, what will come out will basically be what? It will be watery stool. This is how diarrhea is caused about. But what are the signs and symptoms? What are the preventive measures? And what do I do if I have diarrhea? That is what we are going to be looking at in our next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and I will come your way another time with the continuation of diarrhea. Do share, like, and comment. Bye bye.